All right, folks, welcome back. So this is the Knights Templar, Freemasons, and Cabala in Scotland, Part 3. Disclaimer: under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Prince of Albany, Michael Stewart. So the authors write, quote, "The current claimant to the throne of Scotland, Prince of Albany, Michael Stewart, has written extensively about Stuart genealogy and early Scottish history. He discusses the close ties between St. Bernard, the Templars, and the Scottish Celtic Church. St. Bernard had been appointed patron and protector of the Knights Templars at the French Council of Troyes in 1128. Hugh de Payen, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce this. Hughes de Payen, I'm assuming that's how you say it. So they continue, quote, "At that time he had drawn up the order's constitution and translated the sacred geometry of the Jewish masons who built King Solomon's temple. In 1128, St. Bernard's cousin Hugh de Payen, founder and Grand Master of the Templars, met with King David I. Both David and his sister were maritally attached to the Flemish House of Bouillon. Jerusalem excavations. So the authors then make the point that the Templars took the holy city of Jerusalem during the Crusades, and that, quote, excavations led to important discoveries, including some ancient documentation which enabled them to challenge certain Roman Church doctrines. The Templar discoveries included numerous books salvaged from the burned Library of Alexandria. There were ancient Essene works and volumes from Arabian and Greek philosophers. Countless works. So there were also countless works concerning numerology, geometry, architecture and music, metals and alloys. The Templars returned to Europe with the combined knowledge of thousands of years of study. The authors also claim that a substantial amount of Middle Eastern knowledge, learning, and mysticism had been transferred to Scotland. Knights Templar and Scottish Rite Freemasonry. So they continue, it was little surprise the Knights Templar, Jews, and Muslims would have chosen to cooperate in seeking refuge in Scotland once they were exiled. The Stuart Kings, the Setons, and the Sinclairs were all hereditary Knights Templar, and Scottish Rite Freemasonry was later created as a substructure of the organization. The Templar fleet. So the authors go on to make the point that the hereditary rights of the Stuarts were granted to them by King Robert the Bruce after granting the Knights Templar asylum, and that, quote, the Sinclairs afforded half the Templar fleet safe anchorage at Orkney. Stewart also traces the origins of the St. Clair or Sinclair family from France to Scotland. William Sinclair, Earl of Caithness. So they continue, one of Scotland's most prominent families of the early Stuart era was St. Clair, who had arrived in the 11th century. In 1057, they had received the barony of Roslin from Malcolm III Canmore. William Sinclair, Earl of Caithness and Grand Admiral of Scotland, was appointed hereditary patron and protector of the Scottish Masons by King James in 1441. Ballantradoch, House of the Warrior. So the authors state that William Sinclair began building Roslin Chapel around 1446, and that a charter was ratified in 1475, making it Lodge Number 1 in Edinburgh. Quote, the magnificent chapel, still used by Knights Templar of the Scottish Grand Priory and by the Scottish Episcopal Church, stands above the Esk Valley near the original Templar centre at Ballantradoch, House of the Warrior. A beacon of enlightenment. So in respect of the Masonic patronage granted to Sir 1475, there were trade and craft guilds in Scotland. King James III had granted numerous charters in Edinburgh. The Knights Templars selected certain members who were keen to extend their minds to matters of science, geometry, history, and philosophy. as detailed in the ancient manuscripts. Brought out of Jerusalem, Scotland became a beacon of enlightenment. Lodge of Perth and Scone. So the authors also state that Freemasons supported their less fortunate neighbours, and their respective guilds set money aside for the poorer members of society. King James VI became a speculative Freemason at the Lodge of Perth and Scone in 1601. The Scottish guilds were given access to the Templar banking system, their international trade network. You see on the right the spelling of Scone, that's the old spelling. Aberdeen Freemason Guilds. So finally, we learn that Aberdeen founded Freemason guilds in the mid-14th century, and that the Knights also received lay people into their allied confraternities for a small annual subscription. Men and women alike were afforded numerous privileges by way of support in times of need. The authors state that this was the root of, quote, the insurance and life assurance industry. So I hope you got a lot out of it. And as always, don't use these presentations as a substitute for the real thing. These are just promoting the book, these are not meant as a substitute for the book. They're just an abbreviated version, and they're also meant to promote the book itself, which I've purchased twice, once for myself and once for a friend of mine. And if you can't afford it, I'll link where you can acquire it online. Though always say support authors, if possible, get paper copies of the book, if and where you can. But if you cannot afford it, well, I'll also link where you can get it off archive.org. Thank you very much for watching, and take care.